And hello and welcome. It is Monday night and it is time for episode 36, the pros and cons of subscription models. All those things that are good about that transaction for money for game time and gameplay. And those things that are bad because you want to be able to walk into the sweet shop and have anything you want. And maybe choose what you pay for later. But before we do anything else, it's time to say hello. Say hello, Pseudo.
Hello, Pseudo.
Well, that is, I suppose, literally what I asked for. So, perhaps you'd like to elaborate a little more on that hello. What have you been up to in gaming terms in the last week?
Oh, okay, so I've played a little bit of WildStar, and I've sank my teeth into Nosgoth.
I'll be keen to know what you think of that one shortly. On my part in gaming terms, it's been a bit of a mixed week. We've been running around in Draenor, starting to see what the Alliance get to see in the new expansion. And of course, we've been carrying on with the battle for attunements, which is currently our focus in WildStar. And interestingly enough, two games that have a different take on the subscription model. And of course, Warcraft is the game that, well, not the game that started it. I think that particular badge of honor goes to Ultima, I believe, the first ever subscription game, technically, as an MMO. But of course, Warcraft is the one that everyone knows. It's the one that brought sort of gaming into the sort of public consciousness. I know others have done it first, not suggesting it was the very first one on the block, but it's the frame of reference for sort of cultural relevance. But the backstory from that point onwards has varied. Other games have tried to launch to be the big next thing with submodels, and they haven't all succeeded. And we've got a community pseudo that says, this game looks interesting, but I'll wait for it to go free to play before I touch it with a barge pole. So,
Yeah.
Firstly then, before we get into the pros and cons of subs, why is it that people go, hey, I'll wait for this to be free? You don't walk into a showroom and go, I really like this car. I'll just wait for you to give it away before I have one.
No. See, before I go any further, I asked a question at the very start of the show, which was, what is it that people are looking for? We've had a response, and I kind of want to tackle that. Should we do that? Because I actually know what they're talking about. You won't have a clue.
Nope, not to the same degree. Not a game I've played, but dive in.
Okay, so what we did is we asked people, and please let us know your thoughts as you are watching this, because in the end, we're going to be tackling the topics that you want to hear. So obviously we want to hear from you. But we asked specifically, if you play a free-to-play game, what content should you have to pay for and what content should be readily available to play? Now, if we take ourselves back in the day, for those of you who actually had a chance to play Champions Online, it's actually still a game that's out. It's an MMO. It is not the type of MMO that a lot of people are used to because there's one faction. And the original concept of the game was a subscription model. And the subscription model allowed you to make a character, any character that you wanted to, and you could then literally, because it's a classless type of game, you could have any structure of abilities that you wanted to. Granted, you needed to have certain abilities to get to others, but in the end, you could have a completely and utterly free-form character. And that was one of the cool concepts behind Champions Online. Unfortunately, as Aussie has pointed out, when they decided to go free to play, they made it so that the people who were playing for free and did not pay a subscription model or purchase extra options had to play specific archetypes that had very specific abilities already pre-planned for them. And then anyone else who decided to actually fork out the money for a subscription could do what they've been doing, or you could purchase the option to have certain abilities, etc. What Aussie was pointing out in our chat is he feels that without the freeform characters, the game has lost a lot of its draw. And the reason for this is the original concept of the game itself is we're going to present you a game that is technically classless. You could one day be the tank that takes on the world with gigantic swings and lots of physics, and the next day you could completely be a healer and a completely different spec with a complete different abilities. You had that option available to you, but they removed that from the people who do free-to-play games. So in essence, they've actually removed what the core concept of the game was originally about. They've changed. Now, I think that's not necessarily the wisest thing for them to do, but I understand why. When you make a free-to-play change like that, you have to make a change and you have to draw the line somewhere, which is why I asked the question I did.
Indeed, and what they've basically done in this particular example is they've made a choice to do with gating access to stuff. It doesn't really matter what the stuff is behind that paywall. And if it's not enticing enough to be the other side of the gate, well, you're not actually going to proceed to pay in many, many, many cases. Not many gamers are altruistic and go, hey, I really like this game and I'd like the developer to eat more frequently, so let me pay on a regular basis. That isn't really the thought process that typically goes through our heads, and that leads us nicely into pros and cons of subscription models. Now, we've got a number of topics you want to bounce around here, so we're going to have to dig into them.
I think you should address Helmet's response to this, because
let's have a look at
this actually brings in the concept of pros and cons, because we have to, in order to really tackle this topic, you need to disassociate yourself from what is your favorite type of play, technically speaking.
Absolutely.
Because you need to be able to take that emotional thing off. And most gamers, as Helmet says, is that the free-to-play model actually limits the gameplay, which devalues the gamer's experience. Now, that is one way to look at it.
It's an interesting conundrum. I would suggest that whether or not it limits and devalues gameplay depends on how they actually go about it. I would absolutely say that a poor implementation of a free-to-play model is limiting, and maybe doesn't do enough to entice people to play. There's a big difference between the carrot approach and the stick approach. And that's not quite, I think, the conversation where we want to go in sort of pros and cons. We actually want to pick up on some of these advantages and disadvantages. But one disadvantage is simply this. If you are not going to go with a subscription model, you have to go with an alternate. And the alternate is fraught with possible danger. There are so many ways of not doing subscription that are limiting in terms of experiencing the game, in terms of player experience, in terms of your community, in terms of pay to win, in terms of a host of things. Now, these aren't necessarily faults of not going subscription. They are possible outcomes of specific choices made when you make alternate arrangements.
Well, see, that's the thing. I mean, I think the most difficult thing to keep in mind, and I am going to have to get you to sit really still because I'm getting the squeaks.
I'm actually attempting to sit really still.
I'm bringing oil with me on Thursday because we have got to tackle the squeaky chair, because it's weird.
I could just say it's not the chair, it's actually my back is squeaking.
Apparently, Mizpah is sitting on a chewer.
Well, I can't think of anything better to do with them. They're quite comfortable, actually, once you kind of get them compressed enough.
Yes. But going back to the statement, the implementation of any game, it makes a difference what model we are looking at, is always going to make or break how people look at the viewing process or the payment process for something. For those of you who are unaware, during our Thursday show in the data mine, we have a lot of independent developers. And what we talk about in there is the painful process of developing a game. Whether you are tiny or you're a AAA, there is a very painful process behind it. One of them being, can I pay my water bill this month? And, as much as we as gamers would love to have easy access to the type of content we want to play, no two gamers are alike. I have yet to find two gamers who like exactly the same type of stuff inside of a game, who like exactly the same type of combination. So if you have, for example, a free-to-play model that limits access to classes, that might be perfectly cool for somebody who's like, yeah, that's not a problem for me. I'm just more interested in, playing the game and just having fun and not having to pay for it. Whereas you have someone else going, you've completely devalued what I consider to be the gameplay experience. So it's one of those things that I think everyone's going to have their favorite type of gameplay. But what I want to make certain we do, because we're going to dive into these pros and cons, is I want to make certain people understand that when you play an MMO, it's about the community. It's about the people you are around. If you are a solo player of an MMO, I'm confused by you, and I admit that wholeheartedly. Because in the end, if you want to play a solo game, you don't need an MMO. There are millions of games out there that you can play. But if you do play an MMO and you're dealing with a community, there's got to be some way to pay for this. And if you're willing to sit there through millions of adverts, what game could you possibly be referring to there, Josie? I don't know. But if you're willing to sit through tons of adverts and product placements from, see, now I want to think of Kung Pao Enter the Fist. Product placement, Taco Bell, Taco Bell, Taco Bell.
I'd like to apologise for the impromptu ad-commercial that just took place. Alternate forms of deep-fried unedible food are also available.
But that's the thing, if you're willing to sit there through constantly being bombarded with ads to pay for the connections, to pay for the server maintenance, to pay for the support, to pay for the website to be there, to pay for continued development, you gotta give somewhere.
It doesn't meet what for many people one of the aspects of playing a game is for, and that is that level of escapism. And you don't escape very much when you're being reminded that company X could provide you an alternate cable connection, or whatever it might be.
Not everybody plays for escapism, though, so...
No, they don't. It's just one of. So let's start with, for me, the biggest singular pro of a subscription mechanism. There are others, but this one is the one that has the ripple effects. And that is simply this. I do not believe that a player will become correctly invested in their characters and the actions of their characters, which impacts your wider community, unless you're actually paying to play the game. If your character is disposable, because it's a free account and you can make a new one in 5 minutes flat, there's little incentive to control or be smart about the choices you make with that character. I am yet to see a truly free-to-play environment where the culture and the interactions with players is as positive, generally, there's always exceptions, as a sub-based game. So that's my start point. I'm going to contend that any sub-based game, community interactions, personal and social investment in your character, and thus in those around you, are fundamentally different within an MMO.
See, I agree with that. And I agree with that based on the experiences that I've had as a personal player. Because at this point, I'm going to take it from being the observer and the discusser of this from a non-emotional point of view and throw myself in both feet with emotions. Smiley face. What it comes down to for me is I have played a vast amount of games, both free-to-play and subscription-based. And the ones that have a subscription base, I have actually spent more time in than those that are free-to-play. And the reason for that is because it is so easy to just drop it and forget it. It's so easy to just go, yeah, okay, so I've leveled, and as much as I really like the gameplay of this, I just don't really want to bother. Now, part of it is that, and part of it is also the fact that anytime I've tried to play a free-to-play game, most of the time I haven't had a massive community going with me. So it would be really interesting to me as an experiment, and maybe someday I'll do this. I'll grab all of you MMO buff people out there, find a free-to-play game, and as a community, we'll all transcend into this game. I would be curious to see if the reason why was not necessarily the fact that it was a free-to-play model and it was just, I could easily put it down, or if it was actually the community aspect that was missing for me. But one of the things I have noticed is that in free-to-play games, it's a lot quicker to have people respond to you with comments like, oh, you loser, you noob, learn to play, you suck, I know your mom, personally. That seems to be almost easily acceptable because, like you said, the moment someone gets banned for acting out in a community that in a way could be derogatory, racist, or sexist, or anything that is cruel instead of just simple trolling, when someone gets banned, oh, who cares? I'll just remake an account.
Yeah, it's one of the things that is always going to be a battle in an environment where there's limited consequence. Now, if you've already made that substantial investment in your character and you've got to level jibbity flip, whatever it is in your given game, of course, you may not wish to repeat the process because you've been through that barrier of a little bit of investment in what you're doing, and you may not want to behave in such a fashion that your character gets thrown down the Swanee River.
Absolutely.
But there's an aspect of a sub-game that actually encourages you to make that level of investment. And it's the psychological effect of, I've paid for this, now I'm going to get best value out of it. It's the, I'm tired, do I just log in and do another hour to knock these quests off, or do I log in and play Hearthstone, or do I shoot some faces in COD, or whatever it might be. And because you're making the commitment to the game in terms of paying, you're going to push through some of those pain points. And often in games, the big rewards are later on down the line, depending on your playstyle.
Yeah, that's
It
the big
might
one.
be that the game is exciting when you log in from level 1 to 10, and then level 10 to 15 might be, it's a bit of a grind, I need to get there. Level 15 might give you some shiny new abilities again that excite you, but you are incentivized to keep going from 10 to 15 to get value. And it really doesn't, I really haven't seen a way that a free-to-play game can incentivize in that way. I don't know if there's anything that you can come up with that would fill that gap.
Going through all the games that I played, there's not very many things that I can find in that respect because, unfortunately, most free-to-play games that I can think of off the top of my head do not have quality end-game content. Now, this is not to say that, they can't create quality end-game content, because someone could very simply state something like, look at Tor. Now, we have our own opinions on Tor and the experiences that we have had in that, but there is an end game. There is rating in Tor. Yes, it's a little bit buggy, but it is there. So I stress the word quality endgame content more so than anything else.
It's worth pointing out with Tor as well, from a development perspective, it was not developed with a free-to-play mindset.
That's exactly it. It was not originally developed with a free-to-play mindset, but they have gone free-to-play. And again, that's a topic unto itself. But what you're talking about in some way, in some things, is a subscription model, but in other things, there's another methodology here that you can fork out money to start and then not pay any more. Take your box model like Guild Wars 2 has. You pay for the box, you get the box. You don't have to pay a subscription. You can log in anytime you want. You can drop it anytime you want to drop it. And yet it has an incredibly rich and very, very powerful community. Do you believe that first barrier to entry is what actually did that? Was that I have to fork out X amount of dollars to get my hands on Guild Wars 2? And then once you've forked out that dollars, it's no longer so much, I can just toss it away or what have you. It's more, I've made that investment, so let me not have to pay that extra investment to get back into the game again.
Yeah, I mean, Guild Wars has a very good model. It's a very polished, very well executed, very, very professional game in the way it's run and delivered. They've got some of the shortest development cycles for the release of content you'll see in a European game. They've learnt a lot from other games, particularly Asian games, that tend to have these faster release cycles. They do a lot of stuff really, really well. And they've hit a middle ground. So you have to pay for your box. You've made a level of investment. Mm-hmm. Now, for their community, that seems to work well enough. But it is a community that's going to focus perhaps on PvP more than PvE. There is going to be an evolution. I would say the balance of the game pushes towards PvP.
No, see,
People would be free to disagree with me, but that's my personal view.
Well, see, I agree with that to a point, but they are trying to implement PvE things to it, like shards. You've got the shards implementation. You've got this entire Scarlet invasion that destroyed one of their major cities. I mean,
they're not short of ideas. They're doing a good job at implementing stuff. They're attracting and retaining players. They are a very successful MMO. And the biggest takeaway I get from it, and if you haven't tried it, try it, is it is such a polished game. And for something that does not have a monthly subscription, it is the most polished game that I can think of in the MMO space.
Yeah. I'd have to agree with you there from the things that I have seen and the things that I have had experience with is really the best.
I want to pick up on an exact phrase you made just a moment ago, and you talked about the barrier to entry. Mm-hmm. And obviously in the interview we did with Trion Worlds not so long ago, they were talking about the fact they've done their research, and the reason that a lot of their games now start free-to-play, a la Rift, a la others. Oh, and your screen is breaking up, Pseudo. I see you again.
You can see me again. I'm waving my hands around fanatically because there is another game that has an incredibly polished feel to it, is a box purchase, and makes my toes curl. And I'm actually kind of angry at myself for forgetting this. And I think I forgot it because I recently reformatted, and its desktop icon is not in my not in front of me. And I'm like, why isn't it in front of me? It needs to be in front of me. But The Secret World.
Okay, I don't have enough first-hand experience of that to make comment, but I have heard other people sing its praises as well.
Yes, but the thing is, with that, you buy the next iteration of content for Endgame.
Yep.
Known as issues. But, yeah.
So, just to close the loop out, and then we'll pick out another pro-con to debate.
Absolutely.
Treon, of course, and they paved the way with Rift and then moved on with Defiance, which has gone free-to-play recently. They took the view that the biggest barrier to entry was getting the box in someone's hand. And, they've done the research, they've got the stats for their games to back that up. And the question that this leaves me with is, you may be able to get people into the game, but retaining them in the game is going to be down to the game itself and down to the community and down to the offerings that are actually there longer term. And these are increasing challenges. Not saying implausible or impossible, but increasing challenges if you do not have the plans around the revenue stream, around ongoing content, around a host of other things. But we can cross some of those bridges in a moment.
Yeah, we definitely can. I mean, in the end, what it comes down to is, and this is something we haven't had a chance to bring you the interview just yet from Treon, but they made a very good comment, and it was something along the lines of, the market of gamers. There was a time where if something was free to play, it was classified as crap. Horrible design. It had a very negative connotation behind it. It wasn't expected to be worth its salt or even its weight in feathers. It was just seen as bad. But there has been this transition over the past, I'd say, couple years, where the free to play tag has gone from being, oh, that's just going to be a game that's going to not be polished, it's not going to have any quality content to it, to something else, and it's actually shifting. And this is something that they've noticed in their trends, and I think it's worth making mention of, because we're actually talking about this topic because we had someone say, why should I pay a subscription for a game? Why?
So let me pause there on that question, because that needs to be answered in tandem with the question that we're going to ask now. Okay. And it's just a slight rephrase on the question you asked at the beginning of the show. Now, I'm going to look to you in the channel here. I would like quick answers, 1-2-word answers, as many as we can get. What do you expect in return for paying a subscription? And I have a point to raise depending on what we see in a moment. I'm going to raise it anyway. It'll either work more or less effectively. So we'll see what actually emerges. What is it that you expect in return for paying a sub?
I am going to wait until I at least see one response before I throw out the response that I think is pretty much going to be what everyone says. I have it right there. It is ready. It is here. And we've got one from Gwyn's, who is getting a preview of this, so he of course can get into it before any of us can. But yes, definitely let us know on this one.
Indeed. Well, Pseudo, while we wait for people to play catch up, you'll have to give us a couple of, as a player, remove your MMO buff analytical approach. As a player, what do you expect in return for paying a subscription?
Well, to start off with, Gwyn's nailed the very first one right off the top of my head: responsive support. I expect responsive support. I expect if I send in a ticket because of an issue, I'm at least either acknowledged or something is taken care of. I expect regular release of content. And I also expect the game to, over time, and I stress this, over time, because no game comes out and goes, ta-da, I'm here and I'm 100% working. I'm 100% the way I need to be. MMOs aren't like that. And I expect over time for it to get smoother and better, less bugs, and a much stronger presence in the feel of responsiveness of your character, of what's happening in the content-wise. So I would expect to see the support going across time. I would also expect there to be content at endgame already. I'm kind of extolling the virtues of one particular game there because I think they are getting it. They don't have it quite nailed. There are still issues. But again, over time, I expect to see this to change. But support has got to be there as well. So. Okay.
Now, we're seeing various things emerge in the channel. We're seeing comments from Serindi, from
my
OC,
extra one.
from Gwyn's.
All the things. I expect all
of the things.
I want you to, when I I have to put on the fake hat. Fake pseudo hat. This is not real pseudo, folks. But fake pseudo hat goes, when I log in, I should be able to totally create my character, press enter, press a button, be max level, and get access to all the content and not have to work for it. Okay?
I'm glad to say that MMO has not been released. I hope it never will be, but I fear that someone's currently trying to develop it.
Please don't. This was a joke. Please do not. If you are a developer and you are watching this, and I know there are actually quite a few developers watching this, don't go there. Make your players work for it.
And if you are developing it, please, please, please send it for me to review nice and early, because I will have great fun in the process. Anyway. And I will probably lose a few more friends. However, this is something that I've actually got down as a con. And Tanera says, isn't it called Second Life? Possibly. Now,
oh, that hurts me on so many levels. I am sorry. I just need a moment.
Well, Pseudo's having one of her moments. This is something I actually have down as a con. And one of the cons of the subscription model is player entitlement. Mm-hmm. Now, there is no problem with feeling entitled to get a fair return on your investment. You know, if you go and you buy a service, you buy a product, you expect it to be of merchantable quality. If it advertises that it washes the dishes, you expect it to wash the dishes to a reasonably high standard. That's a reasonable entitlement. The problem is, we aren't always very reasonable. We sometimes want all of the things. And there's only so many things that we can possibly have at one moment in time. The thing that I want might be different to the thing that Pseudo wants, to the thing that Parv wants, or Kai wants, or Gazimov wants, or take your pick. So they have to decide where are they going to spend their effort. Now, of course, different games are going to focus things in different places. But paying a sub does not entitle you to kill the dragon. It entitles you for a chance to kill the dragon, a chance to loot the item, the ability to put in a support ticket.
Well, see, I think there's something that has to be kept in mind here. You know, we're talking about almost two very separate things compared to the question that you've asked and put forward. You know, when you talk about what is it that you expect to get for your money, you know, it's time to play in the game. Server uptime guaranteed, you know, the game should be there. If you are paying for it, there obviously will be server downtimes for patches or what have you, but it should be there a quote unquote maximum of 99.9% 9999 repeating time so that people can play the game.
I don't think they're going to get 5 nines.
It goes back to one of the very first MMOBuff episodes we ever had, where we talked about there being a persistent server, a persistent world in which to experience the game content. Now, having the game itself presented to you is incredibly important. That's one side of it. Now, if you're talking about what content you should have access to if you have a subscription model, that's a little different. And I'm not quite putting it where I want to, but there's almost a divergent methodology behind the payment model. You know, if you pay for a box, you know you've got the game, and whenever the servers are up. If you don't have a subscription model attached to it, then the content then becomes the gated stuff that you pay for. But if you have a proper subscription where you just pay a monthly subscription for something, you get both. And there's two different sides to it. There's almost the administrative side, and then there's the entertainment side. And I think it's worth making that distinction, because someone could sit here and go, yeah, you know, I have no problems, but I expect the server to be up. And someone else will sit there and put more focus on the content that's being released than on what it actually takes to have the game be available.
People are going to take a different view. I mean, some people will say, I want to pick up a phone to support. I want an email ticket to be answered in 24 hours. To someone else, 48 hours might be reasonable. To another person, they might want 3 raids available at launch. To someone else, they might want the ability to, I don't know, move their character between servers at will without any delays or issues. Everyone is going to want something different, and hence why it's down as one of my cons. And I've got it down as player entitlement, but I all too frequently see things that I have to describe as player over entitlement. And if the dev teams in general try and react to over-entitlement, they perhaps haven't got their focus where, for the good of the game as the whole, we might want that focus. Not to say you're not entitled to a quality product. You are. And if we're not being delivered one, we should be shouting from the rafters, but hopefully constructively. And we're not always good at that as a community.
I agree with that. I would also throw out there, you know, one of the things that makes the subscription model lovely is the fact that whether people realize it or not, I mean, we talk about the cost being one of the bigger problems with paying a subscription. Every month I know I'm going to lose 15 quid out of my bank account because I'm paying the subscription, whether I am playing the game or not. You know, there you go. It's one of the most common things. I feel I must play because I pay. That's sort of a methodology that goes out there. But you actually, if you are someone who is willing to invest in getting the content and etc., you actually save money paying a subscription model than you do a free-to-play model.
You do potentially, depending on the game. And let's look at that one in a nanosecond. But I'm going to raise one more point. I'm going to say hello to Medulio as well. Now,
hi.
You go to the store, you rent a Blu-ray. We're going up to date now. We're not renting a video.
Well, then we should be renting an H4 or whatever that thing is.
A red disc. I haven't got a red disc player. I can't rent one of those yet.
Pretend we're renting a red disc player. If you want to make it frequent and you want to make it up to date technology-wise, go with it.
Can I even get hold of one of those in the UK at a sensible cost? That's a whole other debate. I don't think so.
We're pretending we're going to the store. This is a role-play scenario. Okay. Nothing has to be real. We're going to the store to buy a red disc player.
Okay. Because apparently there's a film out that's worth watching on red disc. So I've got it. And I'm paying for it. And let's just assume I've rented it for the princely cost of £15 for 1 month because it was a really good deal. And I get back and I realise that I've been really busy toasting tea cakes all month and I haven't yet watched it. And it's time for me to give it back. You don't hear people go, but I'm entitled. I haven't had a chance to watch it. I'm entitled to watch it.
Why do you think?
You know intrinsically that you've gained access to this for a period of time. What you do with your time is up to you. And MMO is no different.
Well, see, that's just it. You're going to have someone who's going to pull out the argument, and this is me sort of taking the devil's advocate stance. This is why places that did video rental, like that big old yellow Blockbuster and stuff like that, went out of business because they put a deadline. They put a deadline on when people had to have their entertainment product back. And if not, they were charged for it. Now you have things like La Film, Netflix, many alternate viewing availability things are, I don't know why I'm going there, but there you go. And you can watch whatever you want, whenever you want, on demand, as long as it's in stock. And that's another concept unto itself. And I think that's a different argument there.
Okay. Now, Serendi is actually going where I'm going next in my comments. So we can argue about the fact I have to log in because I'm paying for it, and the disappointment if I don't get to log in at any given point in time. But actually, you know, without wanting to sound like a MasterCard advert, what's the value? The whole blah 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 priceless. And I can't think of one quickly enough.
There are other credit card companies out there.
Going for that job with the BBC soon, Pseudo. I can feel it coming. It's that voice.
I would love to work for the BBC.
Doing APRs may go up as well as down. The value of future investments may not potentially reflect past investments. There might be mild language and naked knees on this show. You've now been warned. Apparently there were feet. Anyway, let's get back onto topic. Now, Serendi points out you pay $15 or pounds a month for your entertainment, and that's actually pretty darn good value. I can't think of another cost-to-time ratio entertainment avenue that is so cheap. You know, if I'm really in the UK, how much am I paying just for my BBC TV by the time I look at my license fee?
Well, see, this is something
if I have Sky, I'm paying a fortune.
Well, that is your choice. You're not going with Freeview. But my okay, for those of you who are unaware, because we do have people who are not UK viewers, we do have people who do not understand how TV licensing works. Here in the United Kingdom, we actually pay if you have the ability to stream content on your computer, whether you do or not, and if you have a television in your home, because you pay what is known as a licensing fee. It's the TV licensing fee. It goes directly to the BBC. The BBC then takes all the money because it's technically 100% publicly funded, and it has to follow certain rules and regulations. So hence why, you know, if you give any time to one political party, you have to give time to equal time to all political parties. If you make one comment about a particular edible food company, you must then agree that there's others out
Other
there as
edible
well.
foods are also available.
Other animal foods are also, vegetarian foods are also available if you want to get that deep. But yes, in that particular case, we're paying for them to take money and do what with it? And I think that's the key. The key is what is being done with the money. For example, in the BBC, we have the beauty of, and this is the big reason why I do not mind paying a TV license. Most people in America will be sitting there going, what? That is the weirdest thing. But you guys should be thanking us because you guys get Doctor Who from us. You guys get Sherlock Holmes from us. You guys get David Attenborough talking to you about giant eggs from us. You get the amazing documentaries of things like Planet Earth from us. And that comes from every single person who pays their TV license. Just so that you know.
Indeed, including people like me that
and
don't
there are no
currently
advertisements.
Have... that do not currently have an aerial, but I still have to pay exactly the same fee.
It's because you have the computer and the option and the ability to actually use the iPlayer on your computer. That's the new law. But anyway.
Note this. I have the option and ability, but whether I watch or not, I still have to pay. And that's okay. And in a subscription-based MMO, whether you log in or not, you still have to pay. So the point goes full circle.
Exactly.
But it is a cheap form of entertainment. I don't want to sit down and actually count how many hours in a month I am playing an MMO. However, should I work out the hourly rate, it's going to be less than going to a bar, less than going to a restaurant, less than going to the movies a couple of times a month. Not that I do that. Movies, that is. It isn't expensive. And the way I hear people talk about their gaming experiences if they're paying a subscription model, I think they were renting a house.
Well, okay, see, this is all about perception. When it comes to the cost of something, it's about perception. And my goodness, sir, you should totally be a salesman because of how you're presenting things. There is a serious distinction. If you go to buy a car, okay, so you are now going to buy, pick your favorite car in the world.
Lotus Elise, original model.
Okay, so we're going to buy a Lotus Elise original model with you. And I sit down with you and I am your salesperson and I say to you, you can pay me upfront the full cost and that car is yours. Or I say, I can let you have that car, walk off the lot today and only pay me $1,500 a month for X amount of years. It's less terrifying to do the upfront cost, which is why I think the box model in that whole subscription base of you pay for the box and then it's free is so appealing because you know the cost it's going to cost you. You know how it's going to work. And most people, if you present something to them as a, let's say, what would make it easier? And I think it would never be implemented, but I'm going to throw this out there before you go because I know how long-winded you're going to get and you're going to love this topic. Are you ready for this? How about a subscription model where you pay for the hour you play? Hourly wage. So if you wanted to play, hold on. See, that, like I said, I'm going to give this to you. So we have the people who sit there going, I'm going to be paying a subscription model, and that subscription is £15 a month, which might I add is only 50p a day and a 30-day month. I just pulled the calculator out and did the math for that. You have someone and you present that to them. And they're like, well, 15 is just too much for me to cover. And that, again, is one of the big reasons why people don't like the subscription model, and it's seen as a con. Yet if you were to say to somebody, we'll let you play this game in a free-to-play kind of methodology, but you're going to pay 10p an hour. So you know that for that 1 hour you're paying. But if you're not playing the game, you're not paying. There are going to be people out there who see that as a cheaper option, even though in the end, if they end up playing more than 6 hours on a day, they have actually overpaid for what would be a subscription model.
It's an interesting idea, metered playtime. But I think it would be disastrous in terms of gaming communities and gamers. I'm going to just go back with two sentences. The car analogy is a little flawed because you still have to service your car. You might expect your car to run for 3 years without breaking down, but if you don't service it, it's not going to run very well in year 4, year 5. What happens if you still want to be running your car in year 10? Well, by then you probably need some specialist servicing and a classic car insurance or whatever it might be. Now, these things over time have costs. Software over time needs to be managed. If you continually want new content, it's got to come from somewhere. Now, they may have planned to sell 5 million copies of the new MMO, Badger Life. Keeps going back to badgers. And
You are weird.
that's fine, because they may have put that into the business plan. We sell 5 million copies, we spend £1 million on advertising to do it, we can fund development for 3 years, and that's great until you get to year 4 or year 5. It's very difficult to second guess what the community is going to want on an ongoing basis. And to me, having an ongoing revenue stream, an ongoing input to the developers, it allows for constant iterations, development, reacting to player needs and wants, developing features as the markets mature and change, releasing updates. How it's done is the important thing, and what is delivered for that money, for me, is the important thing. If you're paying a sub, there is a higher bar people have to hit. That's fine. That's not the same as over-entitlement.
Well, see, I agree with that.
My belief is, to keep everything healthy, there has to be a positive connotation for the developers to maintain and retain paying subscribers.
Well, see, I'm going to pick
onus
something.
Isn't there.
I'm going to pick something that has just been said in chat, and this is from RPG Assassin, who says, if you buy a game, you want to pay to play the game, pay for the internet, PC, the console, and things like that. In all honesty, that's what ends up happening. You know, if you step back, there is no open source MMO where the entire development process is done 100% by the community, by some organizational board that is non-profit. In the end, people need to make money to pay their bills and to keep, really, I hate to say it, but the executives happy. Because in the end, in the AAA world, you know, the people at the top sometimes have to make that check and balance, etc. But in the end, the money needs to be made, because otherwise they can't pay for the high-speed internet connections when you have so many people bombing into one server. You can't pay for the upgrades. You can't pay. Do you know how expensive engines are? Gaming engines? I mean,
we're not talking about V12s here.
No, I'm not talking about car engines. I'm talking about the game engine itself. Do you know how expensive it is? If you choose to build your own engine, that is still incredibly expensive. And anyone who has never built an engine before, trust me, it is very expensive because of time, resource, investment. And then on top of that, if you actually go out and use an engine that's already developed, which a lot of AAA games do, and remodify it, you are still paying a big old license fee. There are tools that have to be paid for. And if you can't guarantee some kind of income to cover that, I feel that is a disservice to the developers. I want to pay them for what they have done. But I'd rather do it in a collaborative effort where everybody's helping to pay, because I sure as heck can't afford their salary.
We haven't yet got to the days of the truly open source, crowdsourced delivered MMO. Maybe it's coming. Maybe we should start that movement here and now. I wouldn't be surprised to see it in the next decade. Just as a point of reference. We already get people modding servers and communities and doing things that are starting to approach that. I think it's a long way off in reality. But I want to dig into a couple of things that have been said and a couple more comments in the channel. Absolutely. I want to talk about this idea of hourly rate to play a game. Now, I said it would be disastrous, and it would be disastrous. Because now imagine you're in a dungeon, and someone just says, oh, hang on, I've just got to take 2 minutes to water the cat. Whatever it is they decide they need to do.
Well, you're
now going to resent
it.
But so are you while you wait for them.
Well, it depends if there's group content or not.
Let's assume we're in a group. Let's assume we're killing a boss in a dungeon. And someone says, I'll be back in 5 minutes, I've got to go and water the cat. Now, irrespective as to whether or not you think they should be watering cats, you are now at the mercy of someone else's time. It's going to destroy social trust and links and groups.
Oh.
That time spent getting a group together to raid, that time spent waiting for someone to mail you that COD item you just bought off them because they're a crafter, all of a sudden the major unit of currency becomes time. And that's going to put an immense time pressure on everyone's choices, everyone's interactions, and I think it's horrible. I really think it's horrible.
And you don't think subscriptions do that as well? It's a
No,
30-day
they don't.
time investment,
No,
generally
they don't,
speaking.
because the time, and this is why it's so different. The time investment is a fixed amount of time between point A and point B. It's not the same as metered time. It doesn't matter whether I play for 23 hours and 59 minutes a day. It doesn't matter whether I play for 5 minutes a day. It doesn't matter if I choose to spend half an hour running around the fountain in Dalaran or getting lost in the rat runs of Thayed. It makes no difference to what I have to pay. Whereas, if every lap I made of the fountain in Dalaran cost me 0.0000 whatever pence, someone somewhere would write an add-on that gives you the cost of a lap, and ultimately it would just, the cost would pervade into everything. And paying this one-off flat fee, knowing that whatever you do, you're free to do, and those rules don't change, is a very good thing, in my view.
Right.
Now, we've talked quite a bit about positives of sub.
Well, we've talked some about negatives as well.
We have, but I don't think we've talked about negatives to the same degree. We have a few points on our crib sheet that we put together earlier. Is there anything you really want to pick out to debate? And to the community out there, is there any other points you'd like to see us raised? I'd also like to say, Asher, I'm very sorry. I have no milk. This is black coffee. And RPG Assassin made a really good point in his comment that you picked up on, but I want to take it one step further. You're paying for your PC, you're paying for internet. How much are you paying for internet access a month?
Do you really want me to answer that question for you right now?
No, I don't, because I know what you're paying for internet access a month, and I could counter that with what I pay for internet access a month from here. However, the point being...
I love my ISP. There are many out there, but that one is my own. Anyway.
There are many people out there who all they do on their PC is they play this MMO. Yet they probably never think twice about the cost of their internet connection, just about their £12 a month subscription.
Yeah.
That's a little odd.
It is. However, I counter that with the people because the UK is different than other countries. So let's state that right there. There is a certain methodology in Europe and in the UK that is different than America. So I'm going to speak up for my American brethrens and sisterins. I don't live in the United States now. I don't live in North America, so I'm talking to you Canadians as well. But I understand some of the difficulties that can come from certain ISP choices. For example, there are still ISPs that charge you by the gigabit download.
It's all those sisterins enforcing those gigalit downloads, clearly.
So, can you imagine the frustration that could be had by somebody who pays for a game, pays for the fact that they've gone over their internet limit for that month because the game happens to be 26 gigs in size, and after they've downloaded it, they have to deal with the patches that come out every single week. There is something to be said for having a fixed payment for a time thing versus the meter thing, like you were saying. I mean, by the way, I wasn't trying to say I believe in that. I'm just saying there is always going to be someone out there who throws that kind of a thing to a counter argument. So it's worth addressing in this. But yeah, I mean, even with that, it's an incredibly frustrating experience. But yet most people are going to be more worried about how much they pay for a game or a subscription. Look at Steam sales. Steam Summer Sale just passed. And I will tell you right now, I went in knowing full well that I'm not going to be able to, this particular time, be able to dig in and get all the things that I want to get. Sat back, and now I have 6 games extra, brand new, from the Steam Summer Sale that I didn't have before because they were cheaper than normal. People are always going to be looking for the bargain, but what ended up happening? I ended up paying way more than just if I were to buy one game at a time because now they were all cheap.
And when will you play them? Not just yourself, but in general, people react to perceived value.
Yeah.
It's the Steam sales. Things are cheap. Let me buy 1,347 games. Let me now play one of them for 4 hours and forget the others exist because I've just bought another new game that's been advertised that's caught my eye. I know many, many people that've got a gajillion games in their Steam account, and they've never played them.
See, I'm now wondering how many games I have, so I'm gonna have to go look this up while we go
We'll
towards the
we'll
end.
have guesses. We'll have guesses, please, in the channel. How many games are in Pseudo's
Those
game
of you
account?
who have me as a
Now-
friend on Steam, do not cheat.
So this
I know
wouldn't be
you
a good thing
people.
to attach a prize to, then?
No. No.
Talking of prizes, just briefly, we were looking to do some giveaways last week on the Blizz Forecast, and we weren't able to do so because the Blizz Forecast didn't happen for various reasons, but it is going to be happening this Wednesday. And we are going to be giving these away.
For those of you who can't see through the shiny because it's shiny, we are giving
There we go.
away.
There's the de-shinified version.
No,
Is it? No, it's still shiny.
It's still
camera.
shiny.
There's the camera.
That is the World of Warcraft Warlords of Draenor expansion. Pre-order.
Indeed. And we also, into the mix, have some base game as well.
Yes. So we we will be giving it away because Lobzilla likes to give things away, except I'm going to let Mizilla?
Mozilla? I don't think Mozilla works.
Puzzilla? Miss Puzzilla? Miss Pilla? Miss Pilla!
No. But I'm also going to give away one of these.
You're going to give that away?
No, I've got another one specifically to give away.
Oh, I was going to say. Because mine is currently sitting up in the office, which is being redecorated for the other half of the MMOBuff Studios. So, yeah. But yes, we're going to be giving things away. But yes. But we're not doing it through this, because this is a competition.
No? Okay. Fair enough. I could give someone a used piece of fudge. Would that help? That could be the prize for this particular competition?
No! I want people to survive. I don't want them to end up in the hospital with dysentery, dude. Seriously.
Fair enough. I'm not sure you can actually get dysentery from a used piece of fudge, but I'm actually not sure that I want to find out. So we'll just leave that one. We'll leave that one where it is. What was the answer, Pseudo?
Well, for those who actually care, which isn't going to be very many, but for those who actually care, I currently have 239 games on Steam. That's just Steam. That's not Uplay. That's not Origin. That's not Square Enix. That's not my PlayStation. That's just there. I have an awful lot more beyond that. But yes. And 6 of those are new.
So what we might want to do now, perhaps, is just summarize on some of the key points that we've come up with to the counterpoints and the points in the argument.
Well, I'm going to let you do the summary, because the summary is actually pretty much written down there, and then I'm going to hit people with what's coming up this week.
Fabulous. So in summary, we've come up with some pros and some cons.
I forgot to mention this. I am silly. Folks, for you out there who are watching us, as soon as we finish this part of the show, we're going to have, again, post-show. We're bringing the post-show back, which means we're going to literally stop talking to each other because I can't stand the man, and I'm going to pay more attention to you guys because I love you guys.
Do you see what I have to put up with on a regular basis here?
It's not like you like me either.
Hopefully I'll find some more support in the post-show for my arguments. However, we've talked about the personal investment in characters and in environment. Once you've made the commitment to pay a sub, you're more invested. You start to make smarter choices. Your account becomes more valuable. The reputation of your character becomes more valuable. And it drops a little bit of the ability to hide between anonymity. That's another whole topic. We've talked about, of course, studios that are able to run a decent retention rate on subs get to do smart business planning. They get to know roughly what they're going to have coming in. They get geared up and excited about retaining subs. It incentivizes them in a positive way, and it lets them run good studios, have good dev tools, predict things, and respond to the community on an ongoing basis. If you're trying to run the spreadsheets for making companies work, ongoing retention revenue is a lot easier to work with than big spikes and troughs. It removes, if I can be so blunt, a level of arsehattery. This is a continuation of the personal investment in characters. Wait. I actually need to...
You just said asshattery?
Yes, arsehattery. It removes a level of arsehattery.
Okay.
Just imagine the graphical connotations. It works as a word. And because I cannot create for free an account that can talk to other people. I don't get to pop up in channel and make comments about knowing your mum personally or whatever the reference was you made earlier on. It stops some people that are only there to troll, to upset, to incite, to gain reactions for their own personal deviant social pleasures. And all in all, it provides a better environment, a better flow of content in nearly all cases, and the ability for a community to stabilize and become a better place over time. Those are the pros, in my view, our view. Now, the cons, I think we agree on most of those points, Pseudo.
No,
Is that
that's
fair?
the thing. This is the thing. You and I really agree a lot on this particular topic. This is one of those topics where we agree, but it's also my job to completely challenge you and drive you bonkers.
Which you do very well, it must be said. Now, moving on to the cons. Of course, the ultimate con is cost. Now, you can argue to what degree, but there are people who...
Oh, I have to jump in. Screen just threw something at you in your argument.
Let me see. Let me switch back so I can see screen on my screen.
Screen says, yes, Mizpah, that's why we see no trolls on COD when people pay for Xbox Gold. That is, I think, something to be stated. Mizpah was going on, and this is, again, I agree with him on this. You know, there is a certain level of asshattery that is removed. It's a great word, so we might as well use it to its umpteenth degree. However, communities have an impact on themselves, and certain communities foster certain behavior types.
Yep. I mean, let's look at COD. Now, I don't play COD, so I'm making some assumptions here, Screen, that you may have to correct in a moment. But I'm assuming you gain access to the online portion, the matchmaking portion of the game, through your perpetual Xbox Gold subscription. And I'm assuming that were you to lose your Xbox Gold subscription, you would lose access to that element of the game.
I would also throw out there that the Xbox Gold actually covers more than just one game. And that, yes, I think, is a big thing to keep in mind. But yeah. A
couple of things here. You're talking about a service with integrated voice that's part of the core game, I believe. I do not believe there are any decent monitoring facilities within the voice environment. I know there's been people looking at this and how best to manage it. And therefore, I believe there is a culture where people feel as that they're free to do whatever they want. I believe there are very few cases of people being banned and removed, certainly not for verbal interactions. I'm not saying none, but I'm saying percentage-wise it's low. And I'm saying that FPSs in general have the capability to breed a toxic environment. So all of those facts added up will lessen the normal impact that a subscription basis will actually create. Now,
right.
difficult for me to elaborate further because I'm working off loose references.
It's also worth noting that we're going to hit this a little bit harder, and welcome, Xian, by the way, to MMOBuff, our Monday show. I'm going to let Mizpah finish off on his con thing as quickly as he can, because then I need to quickly move through my thing, and then we're going to fake end the show. Fake end it, and we're again going to go into the post show of our shows, which allows us to spend all our time chatting with you folks instead of me talking.
Absolutely. So let's run through the cons quickly. One of the cons people put forward is cost. You can debate that to what level, but there are going to be people for whom, even at $15, it's a barrier to entry. It might be because they've got another sub running. It might just be time and availability. It's a host of things, but it is a barrier to some. One of the cons we've thrown out there is entitlement attitude. Gamers who feel that because they've paid for it, they feel the developer should drive around to their house personally, knock on the door, and offer them a solution to every single one of their problems. Not very realistic, and as a community, we're not very good at being entitled. There is, of course, the con of delivering to expectations. It fits in on the entitlement attitude, really. There is the con of barrier to entry. That's not quite the same, of course, as just having the ongoing sub. Mm-hmm. There is the compulsion to consume that can be a con if dealt with the wrong way. It can actually stop a game being enjoyable for some people. They can go into burnout. They can be forced to grind. There can be all these things coming up. I must mine another 72,000 Galactium ore. And there is the risk of alternates. Much as people say, hey, I don't like sub, the alternates are not always better. Depending on how things are gated, do communities get split up? Have you all got access to the same content? What is the game experience like? Are you being advertised to every time you log into the game? Does it become pay to play through the front door or the back door? based on choices? Do mechanical choices get made with regards to game design that further that approach and that attitude? There are so many possible alternatives to a subscription that are just bad, worst, horrid, and they smell of sprouts. And with that note, I'm going to hand back to you, Pseudo.
I'm just going to type the word YouTube. There we go. Just wanted to introduce Sean to things and say hello to Sean and wave and stuff like that. But okay. That basically sums up a little bit of what we discussed this episode, although there is an awful lot more we've discussed. But here at MMOBuff, we strive to bring you more. Yes, we here are trying to be, I should say. We're working on it every single day to become better and better at who we are. Because we are definitely, certainly wanting to be the best that we can be. Yes. As I totally fail in Irish. I can't do accents. I give up on this. Anyway, here...
To be sure, you can do accents.
I can't. I can't do accents. There's no way I can do it.
I don't think I can either, so I should just stop.
Get over the pot of me lucky charms, and I failed that. I'm just not even going to try.
I will say I'm quite good at being me, on the basis that I'm not so good at being anyone else.
You're very good at being a rainbow horse jockey brony? I don't know.
I don't think that's me.
You're not a brony. That's a shame. Mad props to you, Brones. But anyway, yes. So coming up on MMOBuff this week, we have an awful lot going on. Monday, as you know, is our Monday show where Mizpah and I, and sometimes guests and developers come on to discuss all kinds of topics relating towards MMOs. We try to keep the focus here MMOs, but we have been known to branch out to other games because, in all honesty, we just want to have a really good analytical discussion about games. And that's what this show is all about. So next week, Mizpah and I will be back again, and we will be picking yet another topic. I'm going to let you guys think about what it is you'd like us to cover next, because so far the past couple of shows we've had have been topics that you guys have brought to us. In the end, we want to answer your questions. If you want to see Mizpah and I go head-to-head about something, tell us what the topic is. Believe me, Mizpah and I have no problems debating anything. We really don't. We could debate the value of coffee v tea if you really want us to. And no,
there
that's
is no
not
debate. The answer is coffee.
Tea. So that gives you an idea of some of the things that you can suggest. Now, on top of that, on Tuesdays, we have something called the Campfire. Real Blank Space from the Viking Nation, Screenager, who's currently talking in chat from Afterlife Gaming, and myself are joined by guests to talk about communities in online games. This covers online games from MOBAs all the way down to the MMO world. We're looking to build a brighter future and looking to give support to the guild and community leaders, as well as people who are looking for guilds and communities, because it's not always an easy choice, and we don't take easy questions. For example, last week, we had an example brought up from one of our previous shows where we had to deal with the situation of a guild member not being prepared for raids because of the fact that they were spending all their gold paying one of their guild members for special time through Skype. So how do you deal with something like that? And that particular issue, things like that. But we also tackle issues like sexism in gaming. We also tackle, and we're going to be looking to tackle bullying and things like that as well. If you have stories you want us to cover, voice at MMOBuff.TV. We will tackle anything involving a community. Wednesdays is getting a big old reformat here on MMOBuff.TV. This Wednesday, the Blizzard forecast is changing. Now, the Blizzard forecast is all about the Blizzard IPs. So we're talking Heroes of the Storm, and yes, sometimes the team will play that. We're talking Warlords of Draenor, and yes, the team will show that. We are talking Diablo. We're talking StarCraft. We are talking anything Blizzard, including Hearthstone.
And Hearthstone.
Yes, I mentioned Hearthstone. Leave me alone. But anyway, this format that we have for it is changing this week, and it is something that's going to be really exciting. We are giving away copies of Warlords of Draenor. We have them physically. Hold them up again because you know you want to. We'll be giving those away throughout the Blizzard forecast and things. And Lobzilla, who is, or I should say Swagzilla, which is what I am designated here at MMOBuff, am very pleased at the fact that we are going to be giving things away. And Kami, you just joined right as we were getting to the end of our show, and this entire topic was your request. Oh no, but don't worry, post-show coming.
Sorry, Kami.
So that's our Wednesday show. We have Parvis from Yogscast. We have Real Blank Space again from the Viking Nation. We have Hearth Trollden, a community streamer here on Twitch who deals Hearthstone. We have Mizpah, who you see here, who is a huge fan of the Blizzard franchise and knows a little bit too much about them, in my opinion.
Indeed, but we're gonna have some fun on Wednesday. Few more changes. We'll let people experience them, but it's going to be a good blend of news and entertainment and happenings and personalities. I'm looking forward to Wednesday.
Thursday is the only show currently, I stress currently, because we've got some huge changes. We're trying to remodify things at MMOBuff to streamline the process, but Thursdays is the only show we have at 1 p.m. UK time. Now, all of our shows are viewable after the fact, after we've gone through and cleaned them up a little bit to bring better quality to you, etc., on YouTube, YouTube/MMOBuff. So if you miss a show, don't panic. You can find us on YouTube. However, our Thursday show at 1 p.m. UK time is designed with the game developer in mind. If you are a game developer, if you are interested in getting into game development, if you are interested in getting to PR for game development, if you're interested in getting into law for game development, if you are interested in anything for game development or are a game developer, our Thursday show is going to rock your socks. It is called The Data Mine. It is all about independent development and development in general with developers. It is group therapy for the developers. At least that's the way it's put together. And we had, in our last week, we discussed an incredibly crazy concept about how characters interact with environment using the Unity engine. So we actually were talking about, capsule things, and it was just a very exciting and crazy show. And if you haven't seen it, it is up on YouTube. So well worth it. It is the longest one we did because we had a presentation from our guest, who, might I add, is now becoming also one of our hosts for that show. So we have Danny from Just a Pixel Development, and we have Chris joining us from 19 Stone Ninjas. Talk about two amazing game development company names. It's going to be crazy. Don't worry, we will be doing a post-show Gothic Slicer. It's not like we're going to disappear when we're done. We will keep you entertained. Friday night, we have Cosmotronic. Gazimoff, I believe, is back. Kai Dream is back. Myself is back. Mizpah is back. And we're going to be talking all things WildStar related from Carbine Studios. We have some amazing things coming from that. Now, Saturday at 8 p.m., we usually do Top Draw, which is our trading card CCG SCG game show. Ta-da! Higher or lower? Higher or lower?
Is this a new format I don't yet know about?
None for a pair. No, Dr. Marshmallows and myself are going to be digging into Infinity Wars. Now, I stress to you, things are going to be changing. Dr. Marshmallows and I had a long talk, and we went, you know what? I think it's time for us to take it live. So it won't be pre-recorded, but this week it might be. But in the future, the time is going to change, and you can catch us live and actually engage with us as we not just play the games, but talk about them as well. So hopefully you will enjoy them. Now, with that in mind, keep your eye on MMOBuff.TV. We have an interesting piece coming out this week about Guild Wars 2. We also have some interesting pieces coming out about, I can't remember whether it's going to be Heroes of the Storm or it's going to be Warlords of Draenor. I can't remember which one, but we have some interesting content coming to you. Now, here's where I turn to you guys and throw something crazy out at you. Due to commitments and time issues, our normal WildStar writer for MMOBuff has had to take a break from writing about WildStar. Do you think you have what it takes to write about WildStar for us at MMOBuff.TV? You have an opportunity.
The offer is out there, and we could in the near future
in touch.
Go Pseudo.
With me at voice@MMOBuff.TV. Let me know what you think you can do, but we would love to have someone writing about WildStar. I am also going to throw out there, if there is another MMO or game that you're interested in and you think you've got what it takes to be one of our content creators, aka the people who write these amazing pieces for us on our website, get in touch with me, because we are going to be doing some crazy things, and this is a chance to get involved. I will stress, everything we do at MMOBuff is 100% volunteer. So don't think like all of a sudden you're going to be making millions of dollars. It doesn't work like that. None of us make money from this at all, just so that you know. But the offer is there. Exposure, credibility, the ability to work with me.
And to compensate for that,
That'll totally
you can even put it on your resume.
Resume?
Resume.
Resume.
I could say curriculum vitae, but that sounds even worse.
With your pronunciations, yes. But what we're going to do now is we're going to say bye-bye to the people at YouTube. We love you. Leave us comments below. Get in touch with us. Tell us what you want to hear from or hear about from us. And now we're going to take it to what is now going to be the post show.
The post show.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready?
No.